What's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist and today doing some Eldlich Lightsworn test hands. So I'm really excited for you guys because this is actually suggested to me by one of my patrons, Gloomba. And this deck is an extremely interesting deck that revolves around milling cards to the graveyard with your Lightsworn cards to be able to get cards like your Eldlich the Golden Lord, Golden Lands cards, and even Elixir cards in the graveyard so you can make some really awesome plays. So without further ado guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell on there so you can come part of notifications squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below for all those awesome rewards, like getting your name in the description of a single video, getting a signed card sent in the mail, and even getting to request a deck profile every single month to your patron, along with test hands. And definitely give Gloomba some love down in the comments down below for suggesting such an awesome deck. So let's get straight on into this. This deck is really fun to play with as well, because you never know what you're gonna mill with this particular build, which is really exciting as you play the deck, because it has some really awesome plays. Being able to summon out cards like Judgment Dragon and Eldlich the Golden Lord is super cool in this deck because they're two just really amazing boss monsters. I have some really awesome tech cards in this deck for you guys as well, which is really amazing. If you guys would like to check out the deck profile, as always, it is down in the description down below for that deck profile. And you guys know it is dad rule number one. You gotta pile shuffle the deck so that you don't brick. Even when the deck is consistent as this, you still have the chance. So make sure that every time you pile shuffle. So let's go ahead and see what we can do for our first test hand, because this deck is super fun to play with. So let's give the deck a quick shuffle and see what we can do. So first off, we're going to draw into a copy of Wolf. We're going to draw into a copy of Cursed Eldland, a copy of Eldlich the Golden Lord, Raiden, and a copy of Charge of the Light Brigade. Other than drawing into that Wolf, this is a really good hand, but in any sort of Lightsworn deck, you're going to run the risk of hitting a copy of Wolf in your opening hand. We have plenty of ways to get rid of it with cards like Lumina that we can actually search off the Charge of the Light Brigade, and we also have a way that we can summon out our Eldlich the Golden Lord with Cursed Eldland, which is pretty good if we're going second, to be able to just get cards out of the way, which is really nice. So let's go ahead and activate the copy of Cursed Eldland, which has the ability to pay 800 life points to add an Eldlich monster or a golden land spell or trap from your deck to your hand. Or you can save that in your hand for later, because this card does have the ability that you can't declare attacks except with zombie monsters, which is the only downside of this card. It depends on what you want to do with your opening hand. Since we're going first, that doesn't really matter all that much. So let's go ahead and activate the Cursed Eldland. So we're going to go ahead and use its effect to be able to pay 800 life points to add an Eldlich monster or a golden land spell or trap from our deck to our hand. But since we already have a Eldlich the Golden Lord or Golden Gucci Lord in our hand, we're going to pay that 800 life points to add a copy of Conquistador of the Golden Land from our deck to our hand, which is going to be a really good card to be able to search from the deck because you have that Eldlich the Golden Lord already set up in your hand. So we're going to go ahead and shuffle up the deck and see what we can do with the rest of this hand, because we have some really good plays. And we have a mill 5 in our hand, which is going to be really exciting. So let's go ahead and activate the copy of Charge of the Light Brigade. Charge of the Light Brigade is going to let us send the top 3 cards of our deck to the graveyard. And then once we do, we're going to get to add a copy of one of our Lightsworn monsters from deck to hand. So we're going to get a copy of Huakero, Raiden, and a copy of Lila, giving us 2 of our names. And we have the copy of Huakero in the graveyard now that during the end phase, you can banish this card from your graveyard to set an Elixir spell or trap, which is going to be our Scarlet Sanguine, which is really good to be able to get that card in the graveyard. And just so that we make sure that we remember those plays, we're going to put the dice over the graveyard to remember that we want to go into the graveyard to get that copy of our Huakero. So we're going to go ahead and use the effect of our Charge of the Light Brigade to be able to search the deck for a copy of Lila. Lila is going to help us out get another name in the graveyard, because we do have a wolf in hand. Like we started out with this particular hand saying that you can search the Lila or the Lumina to be able to get that card out of your hand and get it into the graveyard while getting a copy of your other card back out, your copy of Raiden. So we're going to go ahead and use that as our normal summon to be able to discard the copy of Wolf to the graveyard. And then once we discard that copy of Wolf, you're going to be able to grab your copy of Raiden, which is going to get us another mill 2, which is really good to be able to just get an additional mill 2 off of this particular hand. You get 2 more mills at the end of your turn, which is really good. So we're going to send a copy of Guardian of the Golden Land and an Eldlich the Golden Lord, which is really good to go ahead and get this card in the graveyard because we have more plays to be able to go for. I'm also using the dice here so you guys remember as we're playing through here that we're going to use copies of our different cards because we've hit 2 of the 3 cards that we usually want to hit, one of which being Conquistador that we have in the hand, but we have a copy of Guardian, which we only play 1 copy in this deck, and a copy of Huakero to be able to use that card to be able to get Scarlet and a copy of, say, the White Destiny on your side of the field so you can get more copies of your Eldlich the Golden Lord onto your side of the field. So at this point, we do have the copy of the Eldlich the Golden Lord in the graveyard, which is really, really good to have this card in the graveyard because it has some really good effects. So you can send a spell or trap card from your hand to the graveyard and then target a card on the field and send it to the graveyard. But if this card is in the graveyard, you can send a spell or trap card you control to the grave and add this card back to your hand. And then you can special summon a zombie monster from your hand, which is always going to be this card that you're going to summon. And then if you do that until the end of the turn, or the end of the opponent's turn, this card gains 1,000 attack and it can't be destroyed by card effects, which is really good because it basically says, hey, this card can live through a Judgment Dragon. So we're going to send from our side of the field to the graveyard the Cursed Eldland, and if this card is sent from the spell and trap card zone to the graveyard, you can send an Eldlich monster or a Golden Land spell or trap from your deck to the graveyard, which is pretty good to be able to get that exact card that you need into the graveyard, and you can only use each of the following effects of this card once per turn. So we're going to go ahead and send that to the graveyard, add back our copy of the Golden Gucci Lord, put him back on the field because he will add to hand and then special summon, and he will gain an additional 1,000 attack points and 1,000 defense points. And then our copy of our Cursed Eldland will go off, being able to grab us from the deck a copy of Conquistador, getting all 3 of them in the graveyard set up for all of our different plays that we're going to want to go for. So let's go ahead and shuffle up the deck and see what else we can do with this particular hand, because all of our copies of our Golden Lands cards are going to go off during the end phase, which is extremely important to keep in mind as you're playing through this deck. So you can go for some more plays if you want to with this particular hand, because we do have some really, really good plays as we play through, because we do have all 3 of them in the graveyard now. You can go ahead and set that 1 copy of Conquistador that we have on our side of the field, and you can synchro summon right here into a copy of Michael if you'd like to, which is an option for you guys, or you can go for Curious with all 3 of these monsters. That's another option for you guys, depending on what you want to set up. I don't want to mill to the graveyard any of my Eldlichers, so I'm not going to be milling any more cards with this particular setup. So we're going to go ahead and synchro these 2 together for a copy of Michael on our side of the field, which will give us some more names in the graveyard and give us some more plays later. Totally up to you what you go for in this particular situation. You can go for Needle Fiber, you can go for your copy of your Curious, you can go for all sorts of different plays, but I want to make sure I keep that Golden Gucci Lord on my side of the field so I get the copies of my Scarlet that's set, or my copy of Conquistador that's going to get set on my side of the field. Totally up to you, but I really like this play to put that card on the field to have just such a powerful board presence with this card. And during the end phase, this will send the top 3 cards of your deck to the graveyard, so we can go ahead and use the effects of our Golden Lands card. So we're going to go ahead and use the effect of our Golden Lands cards that we have in the graveyard, which each of them have pretty much the same exact effect that you can only get either or of their effects per turn, but they're very, very interesting because during the end phase, you can banish this card in your graveyard to set an Elixir spell or trap directly from your deck, and you can only use 1 of the effects of each one of these per turn. So we're going to go ahead and banish each one of these to be able to get their effects off, to set 1 each of our different Elixirs that we want to get on our side of the field. Then we'll mill our 3 cards for the effect of our Michael. So we're going to go ahead and shuffle up the deck now and see what we're going to mill off the copy of our Michael, which is going to be a really awesome thing because hopefully we don't hit our last Golden Gucci Lord off of this effect, because that wouldn't be great because some of our cards special summon from deck. So we're going to go ahead and set these to our side of the field. And then once we do, we're going to go ahead and mill the top 3, which is a copy of Judgment Dragon, Conquistador, and a copy of our Scarlet, which we haven't gotten the effect of our Scarlet, but you have to use its effects to banish this card from the graveyard to set a Golden Land spell or trap directly from your deck, which this card is just really, really good to be able to use. So we're going to go ahead and just pass over to the opponent. And once we do, you can banish this card if you want to, because it is during the end phase and it was milled. So we're just going to go ahead and banish this card from the graveyard to be able to set out a copy of Huakero to our side of the field to get us a full back row, which is really, really awesome because it all happens simultaneously during the end phase, which is what's really cool about this. So now we pass over to the opponent. We're going to let them go ahead and go. And depending on what they have, depends on what they can do against us. But we have a really good setup because we have the copy of Michael, the Eldlich Lightsworn, which is a really, really awesome card to be able to have on your side of the field. Is a 2600 attack point monster that can shuffle our Lightsworn monsters back into the deck, which we do have 4 different names. So if we top deck a Judgment Dragon, we have that play. Well, we also have cards like our White Destiny, our copy of Black Awakening, our Scarlet, and a copy of our Conquistador and Huakero on our side of the field. That's going to get us all sorts of different plays, from special summoning out our zombies to our side of the field with these 3, and being able to summon out 2 monsters to our side of the field that are level 5, which will let us go in for a copy of Constellar Pleiades later on if we want to, which is really, really nice. So let's go ahead and use some of these effects that we have on our side of the field. Just go ahead and say that you activated both of these to pop a card and banish a card, and then we're going to use the copy of our Scarlet in our hand to be able to special summon to our side of the field a copy of the Eldlich, the Golden Lord, which is our last one that we had in deck that we were going to top deck off of that effect. And then we're going to shuffle up the deck, which this field is already extremely impressive with what we're able to pull off. But let's see what else we can do with this particular hand. So once that goes ahead and gets to the graveyard, we're going to be able to pop a card on the field, but keep in mind that you won't be able to use the other effect of Conquistador because you did get the pop effect. You either get the pop or the search, you don't get both. So we're going to go ahead and pass back over to us. If our opponent can't handle anything on our board, we're going to draw into a copy of Solar Recharge, which we're only going to clean up the field just a little bit to be able to go in for some more plays. So let's go ahead and overlay both of these, because they are level 5 zombies, into a copy of Constellar Pleiades, and then activate the Solar Recharge to be able to mill 2 from the top of our deck and then draw 2, but we have to discard that copy of Raiden to be able to activate that. So we're going to go ahead and discard that copy of Raiden. We send Fairy Tale Snow and then a copy of Solar Recharge, and we draw into a copy of Charge of the Light Brigade and Plague Spreader Zombie for effect, which is really, really good. We can go ahead and normal summon out that Plague Spreader Zombie, and I do have a really neat play in this deck that you can synchro summon these 2 together to be able to summon out this powerful monster, Geomathmech Final Sigma, that is unaffected by card effects except Mathmech card effects while it's in the extra monster zone. So we can actually just go ahead and put that copy of our Geomathmech way up there and just put it on our side of the field because it's unaffected by everything, which is really cool. And go ahead and activate Charge of the Light Brigade to send an additional 3 cards off the top of our deck and give us a search, which we did hit a copy of Minerva. So she will go off and send an additional card, which is a Charge of the Light Brigade. And we're going to get to search any of our Lightsworn cards that we want, which we're going to search a copy of Lumina to be able to get some more plays rolling. So now that we've gotten that copy of Lumina into our hand, we can then go ahead and normal summon out the copy of Lumina, discard the copy of our Eldlich, the Golden Lord, and then be able to grab back an additional Lightsworn monster from the graveyard, which is going to be our copy of Raiden, which then we can use the copy of Raiden to be able to send the top 2 cards of our deck to the graveyard, which is a copy of Wolf, but we don't have any more room to be able to summon that card. So we're going to go ahead and send that to the graveyard, and you can go ahead and just leave them on the field because we don't really have anything else we want to go for in our particular extract. Shift your copy of the Golden Gucci Lord to attack position. He will lose that attack points during the opponent's end phase, not during our turn. And then we have this crazy awesome field that we have established with this deck, which is really, really awesome, while also having a copy of our Elixir Black Awakening and White Destiny just to back up the field. But they do have the ability that you could special summon a zombie monster from your hand or graveyard, but if you control no Eldlich monsters, you can only special summon Eldlich monsters with this effect, and for the rest of the turn after they resolve, you can't special summon monsters except for zombies. So keep that in mind as you play your Elixirs, that they do lock you into zombies after you activate them for the rest of that turn, which is why we use them during our opponent's turn. So let's go ahead and see what we do for the next one, because that hand was really, really good right off the bat, which is always with Lightsworns. As long as you mill all sorts of great things in the deck, you're going to be fine. But can we get a like for milling all 3 of our different Golden Lands cards? That's just really, really cool that we actually hit Guardian, Conquistador, and Huakero for that first mill. So definitely give us a like for that one, and don't forget to subscribe because that was really, really cool. That was awesome. So let's let's go ahead and see what we can do for the next one and see what we can pull off. Because as you guys can see, this deck is super consistent. It's super fun to be able to play with. And it's just really good at recovering plays and going into some crazy powerful monsters. We could have gone for a Link 4 if we wanted to. We didn't really have to because we did have the copy of Geomathmech Final Sigma, which is a really awesome monster to be able to go for with our copy of Plague Spreader Zombie and our copy of our Eldlich the Golden Gucci Lord. So let's go ahead and shuffle the deck really good and see what we can do for the next hand, because this deck is just really, really fun to play. You never know what you're going to hit with this deck, and you can even summon out cards like JD, which is just really, really awesome. So we're going to go ahead and draw into a copy of our Eldlich Scarlet Sanguine, a copy of our Raiden. This is already a really good hand because we already have a Golden Gucci Lord and a copy of Raiden to be able to start our plays with. Charge of the Light Brigade, we're going to get a mill 3. Another Charge of the Light Brigade, we're going to get a mill 6. And a copy of JD. Wow, that's a really, really good hand. That's a mill like 10 from the deck, and you have a copy of Scarlet that can be able to special summon a copy of Golden Gucci from the deck or the graveyard. So if you mill all 3, you can still get him during your opponent's turn. So let's go ahead and start our plays rolling. Let's go ahead and activate both of our Charge of the Light Brigades. We're going to use them one at a time, of course. So we're going to use one of our Charge of the Light Brigades to send the top 3 from our deck to the graveyard. We hit a Felice off that copy. And we're going to go ahead and send these to the graveyard, which that copy of Black Awakening can go off in the graveyard because it has the ability that you can banish this card from the grave to set a Golden Land spell or trap directly from your deck. So we're going to go ahead and use the effect of Charge the Light Brigade to grab a name that we don't have. We're going to go ahead and grab something like a copy of our Lumina, because we want to grab Lumina to kind of thin the deck, and it helps out a lot to be able to just thin the deck out for some of our cards. So you can go ahead and banish that copy of the Black Awakening before we use the next Charge of the Light Brigade to be able to then set to our side of the field Conquistador, because we want to set up for the Conquistador Elixir play, which is really, really nice. So let's go ahead and shuffle up the deck and see what we can do for the next one. So what we're going to do for the next play is we're going to go ahead and activate the copy of Charge of the Light Brigade to send 3 more cards off the top of our deck to the graveyard to give us an additional search of a Lightsworn card. And we're going to hit a Wolf, a copy of our Raikou, and a Solar Recharge. We're going to special summon out the copy of Wolf to be able to get it on our side of the field, which is really awesome because now we have a Synchro for 8, which is really, really nice to be able to go for a Synchro 8. And we can normal summon out the copy of Raiden, which will get us an additional mill 2, which is really, really good. So let's go ahead and mill 2 more, which is 2 more copies of Scarlet. We don't want to mill Scarlet. That's okay though, because we still have more plays. So we're not even going to activate Scarlet anyways right away. So let's go ahead and put the dice back on top of the graveyard, just so we remember for the test stand's sake. At locals, you might not have to do that and remember that. So it's totally up to you guys. But just so you guys can see that how many cards we actually have in the graveyard that we're going to activate during the end phase, we're going to go ahead and put the dice on tops for you guys. But now you have all sorts of different plays that you can go for. So let's go ahead and synchro together these 2 monsters on our side of the field to be able to go for a copy of our Chaos Ruler. Chaos Ruler is really good in this situation to be able to go for this card because it's going to let you basically excavate the top 5 cards of your deck. And once you excavate the top 5 cards of your deck, you get to add either a light or dark monster from those cards and then send the rest to the graveyard. So we're going to get a copy of Huakero, Wolf, we're going to get a double Wolf, Cursed Eldland, and a Plague Spreader. I'm grabbing the Plague Spreader. Both of these will special summon to the field, and then both of these will go to the graveyard, which will increase our count again to 2, because we have a copy of our Elixir, and we have a copy of our Huakero, which is really, really nice to be able to go ahead and set that up, which is just really, really cool. We did go ahead and use the Black Awakening, but I don't really feel the need to go ahead and use the copy of Scarlet. You can go ahead and use it if you want to, because it does have the ability that you can banish this card from your graveyard to be able to grab a Golden Land card. So if you want to go ahead and do that at this point, you totally can, to be able to set up your board, because it does have the ability that you can't special summon except for zombies during you activate this, but you can banish this card from the graveyard to set 1 Golden Land spell or trap directly from your deck, which is going to help us out a lot to be able to grab a copy of Huakero so we don't mill our last Huakero from the deck. That's something that you got to watch out for as you're playing. I probably should have grabbed that the play previous before I after I milled the copies of Scarlet, but it's totally up to you when you do it. So Now we have this crazy field that we can set up. You can go ahead and synchro these two together if you want to for a copy of our Geomathmech Final Sigma, which is going to help us out a lot to be able to get that monster out on our side of the field. And you can overlay both of these way down here for a copy of Minerva if you want to summon out your copy of Minerva, and then detach a material off the copy of Minerva to be able to mill 3 off the top of the deck. She has the ability you can detach a material from this card and then send the top 3 cards of your deck to the graveyard, and then you can draw cards equal to the number of Lightsworn cards sent to the graveyard by this effect. So we're going to go ahead and send the top 3 from our deck to the graveyard to be able to then draw equal to the number of Lightsworns, which is Judgment Dragon, a Lumina, and a Charge. So we get to draw a single card, which hopefully it was worth it, and it is a Golden Gucci Lord. That's really, really good to be able to just grab that copy of Golden Gucci Lord. But let's take a quick look at the graveyard and see how many different effects we have. We have a Huakero, and we have a copy of Scarlet, which we've already used the copy of Scarlet, which is going to bring our counter back down to 1 because we just have that Huakero that we're going to resolve during end phase. And we have this really good setup right off the bat. We can go ahead and put our copy of Golden Lord on the field if we want to, but we do have the copy of Huakero that's going to be able to set us up anyways, and we have a copy of Scarlet in the hand to be able to go in for more plays. So let's go ahead and set that copy of Scarlet, and then you also have the ability that you can special summon out JD later on because we have multiple Lightsworns in the graveyard. We have 1 name, 2 names, 3 names, 4 names in the graveyard, 5 names in the graveyard because the Twilight Sworns do count as names, which is really good. And you can even bring back your copy of your Chaos Ruler because it has the ability you can banish a light and dark monster in your hand or graveyard to special summon this card back from the graveyard, but banish itself when it leaves the field. So we can go ahead and pass over to the opponent, let them go after we've gone in for this insane hand and insane plays. And we're going to go ahead and let them go because we're already set up with a copy of JD and all this back row that we have. And during the end phase, we're going to act as we let them go to their turn. We have the copy of Huakero, which is why I left that dice there to be able to banish it from the graveyard and then set to our field 1 of our Elixir cards, which can be a copy of our White Destiny because that's the last one we have in the deck. So we're going to go ahead and shuffle up the deck, pass over to the opponent, let them go ahead and go through their turn, and once we go back to us, we're going to draw for turn, or you can go ahead and start activating your cards, like your copy of the Elixir Scarlet Sanguine during their turn to be able to not have that drawback of only being able to special summon zombies for the rest of the turn. Summon out your Golden Lord first, and once you do summon out that copy of Golden Lord, you have the Huakero that you can summon, and the copy of Conquistador to get that pop and that banish, which is really good, and you have White Destiny if you want to use White Destiny as well to special summon a zombie from your hand or graveyard, which is an option for you guys if you want to. You can summon Plague Spreader, or you can summon out another copy of the Golden Lord. Depends on what you want to set up. Or you can leave it face down to be able to use it next turn with your copy of your Golden Lord to be able to go in for more plays, which is a really nice thing. So we're going to go ahead and go for our turn and draw for turn, which is going to help us a lot because we're going to draw into a copy of our Raiden. You can drop the copy of JD on your side of the field to board wipe the field if you want to go that route as well, which is another route for you guys. If you want to board wipe, you don't have to board wipe with this field because you have so many power plays that your opponent is probably not going to get to play through this, but we're going to go ahead and overlay both of these way down here to be able to make a copy of our Constellar Pleiades. We're then going to special summon out our copy of JD, and then you can go for any play that you want to go for at this point. I usually like to special summon back from the graveyard the copy of my Chaos Ruler by just banishing a light or dark monster. So we're going to banish the copy of Raiko, and we're going to banish any other Lightsworn that we have in the graveyard of a similar name that has a 2 of the same in the graveyard, which we have double Wolf in the graveyard. So we're just going to banish a copy of Wolf to summon back our Chaos Ruler to our side of the field, switch that copy of Golden Gucci Lord to attack position, and then you can just go in with this field, which is really awesome that you can just establish this crazy field with this deck. So I think that pretty adequately shows how this deck works because it's super consistent. It's really fun to play. It goes through all these insane combos. It's really dependent on what you draw into your hand. So there's no real like straightforward combo for the deck. I'm really showing you guys what the potential of what you can do with it is. It kind of is, it takes a skilled player to play with this deck too, because you've got to play around with what you've got. And kind of like as you play through it, you've got to understand like if I summon out JD to my field and I board wipe and then I follow it up with a Golden Gucci Lord, then the Golden Gucci Lord can't be destroyed by card effects. So I put the counter counter on it, so it can't be destroyed by card effects, especially on that JD board wipe. Put the copy of Final Sigma on the field, which is unaffected by all their card effects, which is really cool, but the Chaos Ruler can bring itself back, so it doesn't matter, and that's like 95 right there just with these. And then the copy of Final Sigma tagged into all this is like 12,000 damage, 12,050 damage, which is really crazy. Like, you have a lot of potential for this deck, and we didn't even go into Zeus, which you can go into Zeus. We didn't link climb in this particular one because you didn't need to. You can link climb if you want to, but there's just so many plays that this deck can establish. And if you guys would like to check out the deck profile for it, you definitely should. It is always down in the description for every test hand video. You guys can always check out the deck profile down there in the description down below. But this deck is super crazy. I'm really glad that Gloomba suggested this one because this deck is really insane and super fun to play and not even that expensive, which is really, really nice because the Eldlich cards have been reprinted and all of the Lightsworn monsters have been printed multiple times, which is really, really nice. And you can cut some of the cards like Needle Fiber if you want to, because as you guys saw, you really don't have to have them. So anyways, guys, this is DarkArmedDuelist. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell on there so you can become part of notification squad, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.